Okay, so for today's bell work on day 4, the sum of 3 consecutive integers is 8,000. We know that when it says is 8,000, it's going to be equals 8,000, so that's part of it. What does it mean for something to be consecutive, though? Kind of. If I want consecutive numbers, I'm talking about numbers that are one right after another. So an example of 3 consecutive integers, oh, you can't even see this. 3 consecutive integers would be like the numbers 1, 2, and 3 because there's one right after the other. So when we're trying to come up with our bell work for today, we know it's going to equal 8,000, but we have to figure out what the 3 consecutive integers are. In math, when you don't know something, you use a what? A letter. So when you're not sure, okay, odd desks can take a math break. The first consecutive number we're going to use is x. Like this first number, we're going to use an x because we don't know what number they're talking about, okay? We don't know what number they're talking about. When we don't know something in math, we use a letter. How do I get from 1 to 2 using addition? How much do I have to add? I'm going to take 1 and I'm going to add 1 to it. So my next thing will be plus x plus 1. Thanks, Leo. To get from a 1 to a 3, how much do I have to add? 1 plus what gives me 3? 2. Kaysen? This is what you need to write for today's work. X stands for your first number, x plus 1 stands for your second consecutive integer, and x plus 2 stands for your third consecutive integer. So x plus 1 plus x plus 2 equals 8,000. So that's day 4 of your bell work. Write it down. What was yesterday? I had you do yesterday's on your own, so I didn't help you with that one. You need to add up what it says to add up. I think it says sum on it, right? So you're going to be adding. All right. Now you need to get out lesson 21. This is a very similar lesson to what we did yesterday. We're writing equations from a line. We're just making sure that we know how to do this. At the end of the year, when you take a math test, this is going to be on there. I can't see the future, but I've been teaching 8th grade math this is my 5th year now. And I've seen it every single year on like the practice test and all of that stuff. So it will be on your math test. So we kind of figured out yesterday how to do this, but now if you look, because yesterday I told you to, okay, find your tiny little y, go down on that line and see where it crosses. Well, what happens if it doesn't cross at a whole number? We can't just make up a number. You can't just say, oh, that looks kind of like 2.5, so that's what I'm going to put. You can't just make up a number. So what we are going to do is we're going to find 2 points. I found one right here, kind of by this little L. I'm going to follow my line till I see another point. I think there's one down here. And we're going to actually write down those 2 points and like how to get to them. So the first point I'm looking at is this one on the bottom. To get to that point, like I want an ordered pair. I have to go -2, +2. So I'm going to write that down, -2, +2. I also want to write down the point for the other one that I came up with. So I start at 0, 0. I have to go over 5 and up 4. Okay, so what we're trying to do is come up with an equation in slope-intercept form. So we want it to be in this form. And if we're trying to get it in that form, we have to know what the slope is. We've practiced finding slope between 2 points before. So this is going to be x1. This is going to be y1. By the way, you should be writing on your paper. This is x2. This is y2. So the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to figure out what the slope of this line is, and how else could you find the slope? You could look at your graph. If they give you a graph, that's a better way to find your slope. It's easier. You could find it this way, or you could say, okay, I have to go up 1, 2, and I have to go, okay, even math break, over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So my slope is 2 over 7. Garrett, what is happening? Do you need a pencil? Okay. So my slope is 2 over 7. So what you're going to do is, and actually, I'm going to use this point right here, the one that has a 5 and 4. And instead of saying y equals, I'm going to replace that with what my y is in this point. So 5, 4, what was my y? 5 or 4? 4. So instead of saying y equals, I'm going to say 4 equals. Instead of saying m, I know what m is now. It is 2 over 7 because we just found that from our graph. And instead of saying x, I'm going to replace it with this 5, and I'm going to take it times 5. The only thing that we don't know what it is this letter b, and this is how we're going to solve that really quick. Get your calculator. You should have one on your desk, and you're going to take 2/7 times 5. 2 ABC 7 times 5. You get 1 3/7, right? If you wanted to know what that was as a decimal, it's about 1.4. I'm going to change that to 1.4. And then if I want to know what the letter B is, I just need to move that 1.4 over. So what we need to know is what is 4 minus 1.4? 2.6. Okay, so now we have two very important pieces of information. This thing that we just found and m. That's all we need. So you're going to write your equation, y equals, we know what m is, it was 2/7. We'll keep an x right by it, and if this is a positive 2.6, I'll put plus 2.6. Now, if you go on your y-axis, it's saying it should cross my line at about 2.6, and that looks about right. So this is what happens if you don't have if your line does not cross at a perfect point, you have to do a little bit more solving because you can't just make numbers up in math. We're going to keep trying problems like this. So like what you'll do is you'll go on your y-axis and you'll go down and see if it crosses at a perfect point. But once again, it does not. So we're going to follow this line down until we see if we have a point right here. Here's one. What is this point? How do I get to that point from 0, 0? I go over 4 and up 1. So that is the point that I just made. I'm going to follow my line until I find another point because I really do need to find my slope. Does this line look like it's going uphill or downhill? Downhill, which means my slope is going to be what? Negative number. So to get from this top point, I have to go down 1, 2, 3. So the top number of my slope is negative 3. To my other point, I have to go over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the bottom number is a positive 5. So we're going to do the same thing we did on the last one. Here's the equation that we're trying to get it in. So I know that the first letter is x, the second letter is y of that point that we put up there. So instead of saying y equals, I'm going to say 1 equals because I know 1 is in the spot where y would go. Instead of saying m, I'm going to say negative 3/5. Okay, everybody masks on, please. Instead of saying m, I say negative 3/5. Instead of saying x, I'm going to put a 4 there. And then we don't have anything to replace b yet, so I put plus b. The good news is, you guys, is that you have a calculator. So these fractions shouldn't be too terribly hard if you know how to type them into your calculator. I've heard from the counselors, they said that every section of your math test this year, you get to use your calculator, whereas years before, it was like one section that you didn't get to use your calculator. So I think that's a little change this year, hopefully. So what we need to do is make sure we know how to use the calculator. So I need to type in negative 3 in my calculator. The negative button is that right below the positive 3. It's like a little negative sign in parentheses. So type in negative 3. ABC button. It's right by the button that says data. AB/C, and then you're going to hit a 5. Then you're going to take times 4. Negative, so right now you have y, or 1 equals negative 2 and 2/5 plus b. All right, so to move negative 2 and 2/5 over, what's the opposite of negative 2 and 2/5? So we're going to add 2 and 2/5 to the other side. You don't even have to type anything into your calculator here. So these go away. If I take 2 and 2/5 and I add 1 to it, what would it be? 3 and 2/5. And that's what the letter B stands for. So what we know we need to keep this right here, the one we just found, and we also need our slope, which is m. Those are the two important things that we need, and we're going to replace it in our equation. Y equals our m, which is negative 3/5, times x. And is this a positive or a negative? 3 and 2/5. It's positive, so you'll put plus 3 and 2/5. And you're done. It's not beautiful. There are fractions involved, and that's why we have to know how to do this, because it is a little bit more difficult. They're telling us that our line should cross at about 3 and 2/5, which is about right. All right, we're going to do a couple more of these today. So find a point. Here's a point right here. I'm going to keep following until I find another point. Because you have to have 2 points to find your slope. Remember, slope is rise over run. So if this line looks like you're going uphill, your slope is going to be positive. So I have to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I have to go over 1. What is 5 divided by 1? 5. So we're just going to say that our slope is 5. That's very important. We're going to need that. And we need to write down one of these points. It really doesn't matter which point we're writing down. It looks like this is at 12 right here. You see the 12 at the bottom? So the first point I'm going to write down is 12. And how many did you have to go up? No, to this little point right here. 2. So I wrote down this point. This will be my x, and this will be my y. This one's going to be a lot easier because our slope is not a fraction. So we're going to replace, we're using the equation y equals mx plus b. That's the equation we're using, and we want to replace y with the number 2. So 2 equals. I want to replace m with the number 5, and I want to replace x with the number 12. We don't have the letter b yet, so we just have to keep that there. What we do need to figure out is what's 5 times 12? Yeah, thank you. 60. What's the opposite of positive 60? Negative 60. So figure out what is 2 minus 60. 2 minus 60. Negative 58. So circle that. That's the other thing we have to know to write our equation. Now we're going to write y equals our m, which is 5, our x, and then this is a negative 58, so I put minus 58. That one was nice because the slope was not a fraction, so we didn't get any fractions. We didn't have to worry about the fractions on this one. We're going to do a couple more of these. I'm going to look through here. We're going to do a couple more of these, and then there's a couple different types of questions at the end that we're going to talk about. So we're going to do this one right here. Do you see how it crosses at 0? We're on example 4. It crosses at 0. It crosses perfectly at 0. We already know what our y-intercept is. It's 0. We're going to keep following this line till we see another point. I found one right here. So now I'm able to find my slope. I just have to figure out how do I get from one point to the next. So how far up do I have to go? So the top number is a 1. How far right do I have to go? 1, 2, 3. The bottom number is a 3. Since that crossed perfectly at 0, all we have to say is y equals 1/3 x plus 0. You might also see this written as y equals 1/3 x with no plus 0 at the end. That means the exact same thing. And you're done on that one. That's like what we did the last couple of days. Those are nice when they cross at like a point where you can actually tell where it crosses. That is a nice type of problem because it's way easier. No. All right, I'm going to show you. I want you to skip to number 3. I think it's exercise 3. The reason why we're not doing exercise 2 or 1 and 2 is because those are very similar to the ones we just did. So we've done so many of those examples, but this one is different. Look at it. It doesn't give you a graph. These are different, okay? If it doesn't give you a graph, you're going to label these points. This is going to be x1 and y1. Everybody needs to label like I am. This is x2 and y2. This one you have to do another step. You have to find your slope. And the slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So what you're going to do is you're going to find your slope first. So the number right underneath y2 is 3. So I'll say 3 minus. The number right underneath y1 was a 5. So I'll put a 5. The number right below x2 was a 2. Minus, because that's what my equation tells me I need to do. And then the number right below x1 is negative 4. So now we're trying to find our slope. What is 3 minus 5? Negative 2. When you have two negatives right next to each other like that, what's it actually become? So what's 2 plus 4? And this can be reduced to negative 1 over 3. So I'm actually going to use this number as my slope. All right, at this point, you guys have 2 points up here. You just need to pick one of them, and I always choose the one that is got no negatives in it. So I'm going to use this point that says 2 and 3. This is going to be my x, and this is going to be my y. I'm using this point because it has no negatives. So instead of saying y equals, and we're using this equation, I'm going to say what was in the place of y. So 3 equals, the m that we just got was negative 1/3. X is 2. We want to know what this letter B stands for, what number that is. Negative 1/3 times 2 is just negative 2/3. What's the opposite of having a negative 2/3? Positive 2/3. So I'm going to add that to this side. Negative 2/3, positive 2/3 cancels. What is 3 plus 2/3? 3 and 2/3. That's what the B is. So my very last step is I'm going to use y equals, I'm going to write what my m is, which was negative 1/3. I'll put an x by it, and then if this is a positive 3 and 2/3, I'll put plus 3 and 2/3, and then I'm done. Put it away. We're going to do one more problem because it's a little bit different. It is number 5. So everybody look at number 5. They give you 1 point and they give you the slope. So you're going to label this is your x, this is your y, and they give you your slope. So we're using this equation, y equals mx plus b. I just had you label which one I wanted you to have for y. That's a 3. So I'm going to say 3 equals. They tell you what m is. The m is 4. They tell you what x is. X is 8. All we have to do is figure out what this B letter stands for. What is 4 times 8? 32. Yeah. The opposite of a positive 32 is a negative 32. So what we are trying to figure out, what is 3 minus 32? Close. 3 minus 32 is negative 29. There we go. We need to use this number, the negative 29, and then we need to use our slope, which is they gave it to us at the very beginning. Y equals the slope that they gave us, which was 4, times x minus 29. And you're done. All right, those are the notes we're going to do today. You can put those notes away and go ahead and get your Chromebook out.